Hey everybody, this is Atesh and welcome back to my channel. In this new series, we are looking at how to write a modern metal song. First, we will have a look at the composition of the starting idea. Then we're gonna expand it, then mix it and master it, anything and everything you might need to release a song. In this specific episode, we're looking at how to get started. Before we get started, I just wanted to say this is just one way of writing a song and it might not work every time. But to be fair, that's almost always the case. So what I did differently this time is that I started with lyrics. I took a piece of the lyrics that has a natural rhythm and started working on that. And I'm gonna be doing the singing and I am not a professional singer. So be warned. I mentioned this in one of my earlier videos called Composition Essentials Expanding Ideas, that you don't need a lot of material to start working with. In that video, I demonstrate how I wrote many parts for my song Hole in the Wall using just 2 consecutive notes. So this is going to be a similar approach. I made a version of the song, but today we are remaking it. So let's just jump into the project and see what's happening. Okay, I have a project open in here. First, have a listen to the finished product.
You are still falling, still having at the bottom. You hate them, you're part of the problem.
So obviously this is a mixed and mastered version. The first thing I did was to write some lyrics, which goes like, you are still falling, you still haven't hit the bottom. Just these 2 lines. So the you still haven't hit the bottom has a natural rhythm. So I thought I can take that and use as my starting point. To me, it's always important to have this starting point. And I thought I can mirror that vocal line on the drums. And if I'm going to use that little vocal line as my rhythmic structure, why not do it for the rest? I know this isn't the most traditional way of writing, but what it created was a good start for me. And my approach in these situations is that if it works, I'm gonna use it. Before we put anything down, let's analyze the rhythm so we know how to set the time signature in Logic Pro. So the line goes like, haven't hit the bottom. So in this case, we're talking 3s, as in subdivisions. Well, you can think of it as 4/4/2. The way I hear it is like, haven't hit the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we're talking about subdivisions, regular 4/4 would be, but that's not what's happening here in this natural rhythm. It's more like if I do it faster, if I were notating this, I could go and write it in 4/4 and make groups of triplets. But I find that Logic favors more subdivisions as it's easier to drag things around and you have more boxes. So when we analyze the lines, the stronger words will reveal themselves. You just need to read them out loud. In this case, it's you are still falling. Falling is a stronger word. Still haven't hit the bottom. Bottom is a little stronger here, in my opinion. So how I'm hearing it is that these stronger words that we mentioned can come right in the beginning of a measure. So you are still falling, haven't hit the bottom. So it's going to be like a pickup, anacrusis. Another thing I paid attention to is the space this track has, especially in the vocals. It needed some breathing room, which worked for me because I suck at writing lyrics. And the less lyrics I have to write, the better. So it's like, you are still falling, haven't hit the bottom. You know, there's a lot of breathing room in there. Okay, so even at this point, before we put down anything, any boxes, any recordings, anything, we have a lot of info about this potential song right here, right? So I know that it's gonna have a vocal line, breathing space, then another line, and I know that it's gonna be sort of a 4/4. It's in this case it's 12/8 because 4 groupings of 3/8 makes sort of a similar structure to a 4/4. But for all intents and purposes, you can think of it as a 4/4. So I know that you are still falling. Okay, so now we're ready to put some drums. I am using the Get Good Drums P4 kit with the VK snare and the reference custom kick. And this is my writing template. So I don't have a lot, but I have some stuff going on, as you can see. I like working with some plugins loaded in my template because I like hearing the drums kind of closer to the finished sound, although there's going to be a lot more work once we get to the mixing stage. And as an addition, I have these snare samples from Drumforge, Taylor Larson, and Luke Holland, especially these two, Big Snare Enhancer and Big Snare Decay. And now I'm ready to put some boxes. Okay, I'm gonna create a new empty region. First thing I'm gonna do is to put something to count the time, which is usually a symbol. I'm gonna use a China in this case. Here's my China. Since I know this is not gonna be double time, well, at least not yet, I know where my snares are gonna be. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna be on the 3, okay? I'm setting my velocity to 115. I don't really like using the highest velocities because it turns into like full attack, no body kind of a thing when everything goes in the mix. So I find that around 115 is a good place. Anything from 110 to 120, depending on the situation. All right, so far, this is my beat. So this is gonna be the building block of the drum beat. Okay, I can copy this over. Okay, now, it's time to put the fundamentals of the beat. What we're gonna do is accent what's gonna happen on the vocals with kicks. And we're gonna see what else we can change to like make this a little colorful. Our first measure starts at the word falling, right? So you are still falling is gonna be our first thing in the measure. And then the measure goes until haven't hit the. The is our last word. And the bottom, still haven't hit the bottom. The word bottom is gonna be the first in the next measure. So since this is the beginning, I thought a little more space for the word falling would be a great place to start. So everything would be equal, right? You are still falling. This way you have a stronger and more straightforward beginning. And I can do all these like intricate things a little later, but I just want a strong beginning. So let's just put those falling. Second thing I'm gonna put is haven't hit the pa 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 pa. And now I have to fill in the gaps with what I think is appropriate for the song. So after that long beginning, everything being equal, now we can start incorporating a little more shorter intervals of rhythm. Okay, this works. So what I did here is that I added a little more movement in this part because the vocals don't do anything in there. It's just an empty part for vocals, so I think it can use a little more movement. Let's see the next measure, which is gonna be the bottom. And this time around, I want the bottom a little shorter. Again, the same principle, the vocals do something and the rest is open. So we could use a little more movement here and maybe even more here. That sounds good. What I also want is to accent them a little more. So what I can do is use crash cymbals. This obviously is going to start with a crash cymbal. I find knowing how drums function generally helps tremendously. What I do is like I pretend to play. So in this case, so first let's start with the first one. Okay, that's my first crash. I want to accent falling both times. So it could be falling. Now let's do the same thing for bottom. What I do is I alternate the crash cymbals. So it was right, left. This time I can do left, right. When I try to do that, as you can see, this crash and this China are really close together. So instead of doing that, I'm going to reverse them and I'm going to go back here and reverse these two. I want a crash here too. There's one crash that I am not using. We can use that here. So let's hear the whole thing. I have my drum part for this. And at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and record some vocals. Now, I know this isn't the most traditional way of doing things, but since I'm using a full scorch scream type of singing, it doesn't really matter because I'm not hitting a note. So that could be my reference to track everything else. Okay, I have a couple of things on my vocal chain, which I will get into later when we're looking at the mixing.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom.
This is good enough. These aren't gonna be the final vocals. So for temp vocals, it should do just fine. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna track some guitars. I am gonna use the Fortin Cali for this. So this is very similar to the default setting. I just tweaked a little bit. And I am gonna be using my Legator Ninja 7. How I tuned it is E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, E flat. But what I did is I took my 7 and tuned it an octave down from my 6th string. So what I'm gonna do with the guitars is the simplest thing ever. I'm just gonna follow what the kick drum is doing. And I'm just gonna use the root note.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom.
Gonna do the same thing on the right channel.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom.
So what I did there is just I accented the kick drum with the 7th string. In some parts, I accented the snare with my 6th string. This is how it sounds.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom.
Okay, so at this point, I have my little idea. What I want to do is just extend this a little bit. So I added 2 more lines, which are, you hate them, you're part of the problem. So I'm gonna add the drums for that. An easy way to do that would be just copy, drag these over and work on that. There's a couple of things that I need to change to go better with the lyrics. Part of the problem part needs to be accented. I don't need this crash here. This could be open here. I'm gonna delete this altogether. One thing I want to do here is like add a little bit more movement so that it connects to the next parts, maybe a little fill. That's very nice. Obviously, the next thing is to add more vocals.
You hate them, you're part of the problem. Hate them,
Want a little change there.
hate them, you're part of the.
Gonna track that again.
You hate them, you're part of the problem. Hate them,
Right channel.
hate them, you're part of the problem.
All right, now that we tracked guitars, I think we're ready to add some bass. And I'm not gonna do anything crazy with the bass. It's just gonna follow the guitars exactly. I am using the Grove Bass by Submission Audio. This is an excellent plugin. What I did here, I copied the tuning It's exactly like how I tune my guitar. I'm gonna go and put some notes in. So an easy way to do this is to go here, copy the kicks, and just paste them here. And I am going to drag them to the correct notes. I'm doing a basic version for now. Later on, I'm gonna go in and put the ghost notes and the left hand hold. So I didn't think it sounded great without those ghost notes, so I went ahead and put them in. So as you can see here, these are the key commands for those ghost notes. And if we solo this and hear it, it sounds like this. Now let's hear the whole thing.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom. You ain't down, you're part of the problem.
What I want to do is like somewhat mix it a little bit so it sounds a little better without getting into much detail because we're going to have a dedicated episode on that.
You are still falling, you are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom.
And at this point, I am going to engage my mix bus compression.
You are still falling, still haven't hit.
This is what's happening. Can use a little more of that, a little more of this.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom. You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom. You ain't down, you're part of the problem. You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom. You ain't down.
Okay, that's a good starting point. One more thing I'm gonna do is gonna put a tape machine.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom. You ain't down, you're part of the problem.
Okay, so for this idea, I think this sounds great. I'm not gonna get into any more detail, but once we go in and produce it properly, mix it and master it properly, it's gonna sound so much better. But at this point, I can use this as my main building block, and I can expand this based off of what I did here, which is gonna be the next episode in the series. And now let's compare it to the previous version I made that was mixed and mastered, just as a comparison and just as a reference as to where this song can go.
You are still falling, still haven't hit the bottom. You ain't them, you're part of the problem.
So please don't be discouraged if your sounds aren't as good as this from the get-go. It takes a little bit more effort to mix everything, and there are a couple of production tricks that I used in this previous version that I haven't used in the version that we made today. So back to the other camera. All right, this is it for this episode. Thanks for joining in. I hope you liked it. I hope it was useful. In the next episode, we are going to look at how to expand this little idea. Please leave a like and consider subscribing as I post videos about modern metal, be it composition or production or soon mixing. It would be really cool if you could share this video with your friends as well. If you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section. Thanks again. Stay safe. Until next time.